The House Elections Committee will come to order. Would the clerk please take the attendance?
Chair Sterniglu?
Here.
Representatives Wagella?
Here.
Pope? Here. Colzar?
Here.
Burns? Here. Churches?
Present.
Smith?
Present.
DeBoyer?
Here.
Madam Chair, you have 8 members present. You do have a quorum.
Thank you. Representative Smith makes a motion to adopt the minutes from the December 3rd, 2024 meeting. Without objections, the minutes are adopted. Thank you. So since it does look like this is going to be our last committee hearing of the year, so I did want to take a moment to thank my fellow committee members, all of our partners. We don't have our full usual crowd here today, but the work that all of you did together was just absolutely amazing. You may have noted that Secretary Benson said at our last meeting, we are now the #2 state in voter access and democracy in the nation. And that's because of all of your work, all of our work together. We passed dozens of bills out of this committee. We worked closely with the Secretary of State's office, the clerks, all of our voting rights partners, and it was a lot, and we have a lot more to do, and we're going to continue that work with all of you as we go forward. So thank you to all of you who supported the work, and even to those of you who challenged the work, for asking the tough questions and making us work harder to get to the best policies. So thank you for giving me the opportunity to chair this committee. I hope to be back one day again in the future with all of you, and just wanted to say, from the bottom of my heart, thank you, and thank you for the work that you did and will continue to do. So for our last bill that we'll be hearing, we have House Bill 6171, introduced by Representative Phil Skaggs. And we have Representative Skaggs here to testify and explain his bill. Welcome, Phil Skaggs.
Thank you, Chair Sterniglu. Appreciate the opportunity to come speak to House Bill 6171. And thank you to all members for your willingness to hear this testimony on this bill. So there's 3 things that I'm hoping you will take away from this testimony and the purpose of this bill. Number 1, gerrymandering is bad. Number 2, the voters of Michigan believe that gerrymandering is bad. And number 3, the last bastion of the broken system of gerrymandering in Michigan that survived Proposal 2 of 2018 are county commissions. So we in the legislature have the opportunity to take our charge on this last place where we see partisan gerrymandering and fix the system. Now, I'll come back to each of those. Gerrymandering is bad. I think we all hopefully believe this because what we want to make sure that we have in our democratic system is a system where the minority has input, has a say in the process going forward. Unfortunately, in Michigan, the majority of the counties in our state are one-party counties. That is, that the entire county commission is made up of just one party. Sometimes it is my party, sometimes it is the party on the other side of the aisle. In both instances, this leads to a government which is not fully representative of the people of that county. And so one of the things that this bill does is put partisan fairness, overall county partisan fairness, as one of the leading criteria to be considered. so that the county commission looks like what the voters intended when they went out to vote for their county commission. And while we have counties where one party might have 72%, which I don't have my notes with me here, but I think that's Washtenaw County, 72% Democratic, has 9 county commissioners. They are all Democrats. But those 28% of Republicans have 0 votes on that county commission. And the same thing happens in dozens of other counties in the other direction, where we have counties where 35, 40, 45% of the vote goes to the Democrats, but the entire county commission is Republican. So the core purpose of this bill is to make sure that the county commission reflects the will of voters. Why else is gerrymandering bad other than fairness? It's largely because the outcome of a one-party county is one where there is incomplete transparency and accountability, and where you're going to increasingly not hear the voices of all members within the community to make good decisions, to make transparent decisions, to make decisions that benefit as much as possible all members of the county. Number 2, Michiganders believe gerrymandering is bad. They were given the opportunity in 2018, thanks to voters, not politicians, and those that signed their petition, to make their will known in the most democratic way possible, which is one of the great achievements of this state, to be able to have a popular referendum on the issues of the day, and they voted overwhelmingly to get rid of gerrymandering. Now, you can only do a proposal that influences statute or influences the Constitution. They made the decision to influence the Constitution, so in that way they were able to include the state legislature and Congress, but it left out the county commissions because that's in statute and not the Constitution. So now we have the opportunity to fix that. So, number 3, the system is broken, and it is broken because there are so many one-party counties, which leads to unfair representation. What does this bill do to fix this broken system and to finally ungerrymander the last of our elected posts in Michigan that still lives under a system in which politicians pick their voters before voters get to pick their politicians? So this bill accomplishes it by moving overall county partisan fairness to near the top of the criteria after Voting Rights Act, population, contiguity. So that through some complicated, maybe complicated for some, maybe simple for others, it depends on your mathematical skills, but it uses a specific and clear measurements to determine partisan fairness. So this is one of the problems that we have seen, is that you can have a county apportionment commission that on the mathematical principles seems to have clearly gerrymandered their county, but there is no metric in current law to decide what the criteria is to determine if they've done that. So in a court hearing, League of Women Voters versus Kent County Apportionment Commission, the appeals court basically stated the legislature has not given us guidelines to determine this, so we simply have to take the word of the commission. So I'm going to let others go into some of the exact details on the bill, but the core basis here is that we are working for a system that makes sure that the county commission looks like the county, and that we have real capacity and oversight to make sure that that's the case. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Rep. Skaggs. I know we are going to have a much more detailed and technical explanation coming up, so does anyone want to ask Rep. Skaggs or wait until after the more detailed. Okay, looks like we'll do that. And sorry to interrupt your hearing, but I did forget something before that. When I was thanking everyone, I forgot to thank some of our most important people here in the room. I wanted to thank our policy advisors like Cynthia and our clerks like Hazel and Eddie, who moved on, our LSB staff like Steve, and our other LSB staff. I apologize, you are not Steve, but you as well. And of course, legislative director Alex Burkle, who's spent thousands of hours working with all of our stakeholders to move all of these bills, and just all of our other staff, who is making all of this happen for all of us. So sorry to interrupt your hearing, Phil. Just wanted to, Representative Skaggs, just wanted to not leave anyone out.
It's never a bad time to say thank you.
That's absolutely true. So now moving back into this bill, we have testimony from Professor Daniel Magleby, who is an associate professor of political science at Binghamton University. And I believe he is joining us virtually for some of those technical details. Welcome, Professor, and we are looking forward to hearing your testimony.
Thank you for having me. Madam Chairman, representatives, it's a pleasure to be here. Can everybody hear me okay? I'm always a little nervous about this when
Yep, we can hear you.
doing this remotely. Thank you for that introduction. As the chairwoman said, I am an associate professor at SUNY Binghamton in upstate New York, where I hold appointments in political science and economics. I earned my undergraduate degree in political science from Brigham Young University in Utah and a master's degree in mathematical methods in the social sciences from Northwestern University in Chicago. I received my PhD and master's degrees in political science from the University of Michigan. So in this setting, it's appropriate for me to say go blue. I've published numerous peer-reviewed papers on the topics of gerrymandering and redistricting, and my research focuses on quantitative methods for measuring gerrymanders and their effects. That's what I'd like to talk to you about today. Among the most pernicious effects of a gerrymander is that it dilutes the votes of certain individuals. That is, a gerrymander will distort a voter's influence in the outcome of an election. Vote dilution can be an academic abstraction, so it might be helpful to think about the practical effects of vote dilution and gerrymandering, and that's what I'm going to try and help you do today. When a gerrymander dilutes votes, it has the effect of either excluding a group of voters or entrenching a group of voters in the majority. It can also do both. So let me talk about each of these effects. So beginning with exclusion. Exclusion arises when a group of voters makes up a sizable proportion of the electorate, but not enough to command a majority. A gerrymander might artificially limit the amount of representation that such a group receives. Representative Skaggs has spoken about how this happens in multiple counties around Michigan. In extreme cases, this kind of gerrymander will deny members of a particular group representation altogether. Entrenchment, on the other hand, is a problematic situation where a group of voters that make up less than half of the electorate command a majority in more than half of the districts in an electoral system. Majority rule is a fundamental precept of democratic societies. But more practically, getting away from democratic theory, is that when we have a system in which one party is entrenched in a majority, it removes accountability from those that hold majorities because they can lose the popular vote and maintain control over the government. The bottom line is that gerrymanders distort the idea that one person should get one vote that counts equally in elections. The bill before you addresses these fundamental concerns about gerrymanders. The bill has a clever solution for the problem of exclusion. It provides a clear criteria that will avoid the practice of excluding partisan minorities from county government. Where possible, parties will be represented roughly proportionally under the proposed legislation. Calculating the appropriate representation will rely on readily available data. And this criteria places minimal additional burden on those responsible for drawing maps. The legislation also takes care to avoid scenarios where one party can entrench itself in a majority. It requires that counties evaluate their maps to determine if elections under those maps are likely to violate majority rule. Here, counties rely on a well-regarded and highly tested metric called the median mean to evaluate whether or not the map will violate majority rule. The new law would require that counties adhere to this principle of one person, one vote, where no person's vote is diluted. Again, these requirements place very little burden on counties. While I pay particular attention to the ways that laws like this will avoid problems that arise through gerrymandering, I would also like to highlight other important features of the legislation as it guides counties in their redistricting and reapportionment efforts. First, it ensures that Michigan counties follow the Voting Rights Act and other federal laws intended to protect racial minorities. It also requires that counties follow important redistricting criteria like the contiguity of districts. It provides important limits on malapportionment, another source of a violation of the one person, one vote principle. It treats incumbents and challengers fairly in the redistricting process. It also considers other important criteria in the redistricting process, like the compactness of districts and the consideration of municipal and other civil boundaries. Gerrymandering and redistricting is a problem at every level of government. The public and the press often pay close attention to the impact of these processes because of its impact on the control of Congress or the impact on the control of the state legislature. But the effects of gerrymandering are just as pernicious at more local levels of government. I want to commend this committee and the legislature generally for paying attention to the effects of gerrymandering in local government. It probably goes without saying that county legislatures have a huge impact on the life of Michiganders. Michigan voters deserve to go to the polls knowing that their votes will not be diluted, whether those votes are cast for members of Congress, the state legislature, or within their counties. They deserve to know that their voices will be heard and that local lawmakers will respond to democratic processes. I appreciate this opportunity to speak to you today, and I look forward to any questions you might have. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have questions for the professor or for the bill sponsor? Maybe we do not. Okay. I see no questions. It looks like we have Julie Matuzak, the Clinton Township trustee, here to testify virtually as well.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and good morning. I'm assuming
Welcome.
Everyone can hear me. All right.
We can hear you.
My name is Julie Matuzak, and I am currently a Clinton Township trustee, and more important to this conversation, a former Macomb County commissioner. I have spent an entire career working on elections, analyzing data, recruiting, and coaching candidates. I know what it takes to win elections, both the hard work and the composition of a district. After I retired, I sometimes tell people that I lost my mind and went from the behind-the-scenes election person to actually in 2019 deciding to run for Macomb County Commissioner. It was a district based in Clinton Township, Macomb County, and I had analyzed the data for the district. I recognized that it was a very competitive area, but I know what it takes to win, and I'm not afraid of hard work. The data for the district proved to be true. I won that election by 215 votes. Small margin of victory, but it was a competitive district. I expect no less. Then reapportionment took place. And when I analyzed the newly drawn district for the 2022 race, it was very clear to me that no one running as a Democrat could win that district. It had been redrawn from a competitive district into a solidly Republican district, a one-party district. And in fact, most of the county commissioners most of those districts ended up as solidly one-party districts. My campaign looked at all the data related to this new district, concluded that it violated most of the standards for creating a district that aligned with the newly adopted state standards for redistricting. We just had a constitutional amendment about this. We attempted to ask the court for redress based on our analysis, but the courtroom doors were shut in our face because county reapportionment was not included in the new statute. There was no way to appeal this decision. There was no one to appeal it to. Because the local gerrymandering took a competitive county commission district and turned it into a solidly one-party district, I decided not to run. I was not going to put my volunteers and my funders through a campaign where we could not be successful. And the last two elections in that district have just confirmed my analysis. I do not believe, as the district is currently drawn, that no one running as a Democrat is going to win that seat. I truly hope this committee and the entire legislative body will support HB 6171 and include county reapportionment so that we can end gerrymandering at the local level, or at least be able to appeal to a court for redress based on a standard, uniform analysis of each district. I believe that was the intent of the voters when they passed the constitutional amendment. I believe it was the intent of the legislature, and people simply overlooked local races, as they do for many things. And I hope that this committee and this legislative body, if not this year, next year, will continue to try to solve gerrymandering at the local level. Thank you very much for your time and attention.
Thank you. Do we have any questions for Ms. Matusak? I see no questions, so thank you for your testimony. Next, we will have Kent County Commissioner Chris Patchla. I'm not sure if I'm saying that right. I apologize if I'm not. You are here in person. How do you say your last name, sir?
It's Pakla, like you're packing your bags.
Pakla. Awesome. Welcome, Commissioner Pakla. We look forward to your testimony.
Thank you so much, Madam Chairwoman, and esteemed members. Thank you for having me and my voice here today. My name is Chris Pakla. I am a Kent County Commissioner. I represent about 25,000 constituents in the 19th District of Kent County. Kent County is an interesting district because as a county, we are pretty close to 50-50 between the two political parties, but as a county commission, we are closer to 60-40, or even a little bit different depending on the year. 2 years ago, when the reapportionment committee met to redraw the county lines, our county presented two different maps, one that was closer in numbers to that 50-50 number and one that was significantly further off that had odd carve-outs that created conflict for or against incumbents. And the process by which the apportionment committee selected the map that resulted in our current 12-9 split was not terribly transparent and very quick. It happened in a group that was not open to the public at all times and did not have the amount of delay that would be evident in the bill that is presented before you. In my experience, not just theoretically but also practically, our county commission, as drawn, because it favors one political party over another, creates commissioners that are around the table that do not have the same level of accountability to the majority of those that they claim to represent. Instead, they're accountable to the majority of that majority party, which in some cases might be as little as 25% of the electorate. What this means, as you've heard in previous testimony, is that a large portion of our community, independents, moderates, and members of the minority party, are systematically silenced. Decisions being made by individuals, in many cases, are being made in a way that doesn't require or encourage engagement, that doesn't listen to the broad spectrum of their constituents. And as you've heard, it's because those individuals feel very safe in their seats rather than trying to engage everybody around that issue. I watched some of the process of the independent redistricting at the state level and wished time and time again that our county commission districts were drawn with the same level of transparency, having opportunities for the public to engage, having a delay period in which we must wait before maps are adopted, and having clear and objective measures by which maps are created creates a level of confidence in the process that just isn't there in our current county commission districts. The provisions in the bill in front of you will mean that our county commissions are going to be held to stricter standards in terms of partisan fairness, which would result in districts that are more representative of our population. We had at least 2 votes in our last session that would have gone differently had the seats been more competitive because individuals were worried about primary challengers because they were catering to that 25% of the population. Specifically, 2 areas of the bill that I appreciate are the removal of 2 partisan elected officials from the process, the county treasurer and the county prosecutor, replacing them instead with 1 member of each party chosen in the same way as the county board of canvassers. And I appreciate that this would result in more representative makeups of the commissions and a more competitive county district. Republicans, Democrats, or independents, as elected officials, we are all competing in the free market of ideas. No one should be given an unfair advantage or disadvantage. And this isn't just about partisan politics, it's about the integrity of our democratic process and the trust that our residents have or should have in those of us that choose to serve our commissions. When a quarter of the voters can decide the outcome of an election, it's not a democracy, it's disenfranchisement. We can and must do better, and our county deserves leaders who are elected by the majority of residents. Thank you for your time today, and I hope that you will support this bill.
Thank you. Do we have any questions? Oh, we do have a question from Representative DeBoyer.
Just a quick one. Why is it better to replace duly elected individuals that were chosen by the citizens of the county, who you labeled as partisan, with partisan non-elected members of the political parties to make these determinations? Why is it better to do that?
I think in part there's a little bit of a time delay between when those individuals are selected to serve in those roles and when they are being chosen or when they're being asked to serve in the role of the apportionment committee. So it is certainly the case that a couple of years before the apportionment comes is when those duly elected individuals are duly elected. Our counties change in a couple of years. We've seen that happen across the entirety of the state. And having individuals that are selected to create a closer amount of partisanship, it would create a situation in which you're not time delaying those duly elected officials.
Thank you. Anything else? Any other questions? Nope. Thank you so much, Mr. Pakla. We now have testimony from Jamie Lyons-Eddy, Executive Director for Voters Not Politicians. Welcome, Ms. Lyons-Eddy. Are you here? Oh, virtually. I apologize. She is here virtually. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair Cerniglu and members of the committee for the opportunity to speak today in support of House Bill 6171. My name is Jamie Lyons-Eddy. I'm the Executive Director of Voters Not Politicians. As I'm sure you're aware, we are a nonpartisan, volunteer-driven organization that was born out of frustration about gerrymandering at the legislative and congressional levels in Michigan. We now lead the effort to engage with state legislators to pass good government reforms to protect voting rights, to strengthen our democracy, and to ensure that political power remains where it belongs, in the hands of the voters. Michiganders are tired of political gridlock. The overwhelming support of Proposal 2 in 2018 made clear that voters are tired of politicians drawing lines behind closed doors with lobbyists, with highly paid consultants using big data and advanced computer algorithms in order to pick the voters most likely to help their party. And here's the thing about gerrymandering. People who have the power to draw districts to keep themselves or their party in power almost always do so. So now it's time to reform county commission districts, which are just as gerrymandered as the old state legislative and congressional maps used to be. This bill thoughtfully applies the core principles of Proposal 2 to Michigan's counties by making a variety of common sense changes to modernize the statute for the first time since the 1960s. The previous population cutoffs are outdated and just don't make sense given our current population distributions. The bill would ban gerrymandering and ensure that Michigan's county commission process complies with that principle of one person, one vote, which you've heard about from other testimony today. It has strong partisan fairness requirements to prevent extreme partisan manipulation, and it prevents racial and political minority groups from getting sometimes zero representation at the county level. Simply put, the fairness called for in this bill will prevent the extreme gerrymandering that makes voters distrust our systems and disengage from the political process. Michigan's citizen-led redistricting reform ended partisan gerrymandering at the state level and set an example of what people across the political spectrum can achieve when we work together to prioritize the will of voters, not politicians. Thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you. Do we have any questions? Absolutely. You're very, very quick today.
How are you? Just walk me through, why didn't we address county commission districts in the ballot proposal? Like, was there?
Yeah, as Representative Skaggs mentioned, that this is statute level and that proposal was constitutional level. We also kind of had our hands full at the time, to be perfectly honest. Is
there going to be a bill introduced perhaps too that is going to address this at a city level for wards, city precincts and city wards that we run into the same scenario on? Like would that, if we're going to fix the problem, how come we're not fixing the problem, right? I guess that would be my question.
The cities are not nonpartisan. Did you want to respond, or you don't? You can if you want to, but you don't have to.
Yeah, I would direct that question back to Representative Skaggs.
Did you have other questions, Representative Du Bois? Thank you. Thank you for your testimony. We now have virtual testimony from Washtenaw County Clerk and Register of Deeds, Larry Kestenbaum, who will be speaking in opposition. Are you with us, Clerk Kestenbaum?
Here, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Oh, now we can see you too. Welcome.
All right. I'm here in two different capacities. One of them, I'm here on behalf of the Michigan Association of County Clerks Legislative Committee, which is opposed to the legislation. And then I also have some personal comments of mine, which are not, which are separate from the MACC position. Now, one of the most important aspects of this, as far as the county clerks are concerned, is that this restructuring would leave the county clerk as the only elected official on the county apportionment body. Basically, by taking away the other two positions, that leaves the county clerk really vulnerable in this process. That if this is to be done, the county clerks would prefer removing the clerk entirely if we're not going to have other elected officials involved. Another question that has been raised is the notion that anyone suing the county over the district boundaries, that the county would be given the burden of proof, which that's a very unusual provision for this kind of a law. Third, the two individuals who would be replacing the prosecutor and the treasurer on the commission would, as was already mentioned, would be unelected, but also would be chosen basically by the commissioners themselves. This is the exact opposite of what we were talking about in terms of not wanting the politicians picking their voters. We're having the county board is choosing its own, putting its own choices on the board that decides their boundaries. And then finally, as some of you may be aware, Oakland County has been carved out as a separate thing, and this was done for nakedly partisan reasons, where the majority of the officials were Democrats, the majority of the board were Republicans, and so to prevent Democrats from redrawing the boundaries, the legislature stepped in at the last moment and changed the process so that the county commissioners would draw their own boundaries instead of the apportionment commission. I think we should all agree this was a bad move, and that should be undone. If nothing else, that should be fixed in the statute. Now, let me talk a little bit about from a more personal standpoint. I have been a county commissioner in two different counties, in Ingham County from 83 to 88, in Washtenaw County from 2000 to 2002, and I have been county clerk now for 20 years, and I have taken part in the redistricting process as clerk twice. And I have been involved at some level in redistricting, in the redistricting process at the congressional, legislative, and county levels, really for the last 5 census cycles. So, and I have, when I was in law school at Wayne State, I did a paper about gerrymandering in county commission redistricting and what evidence there was in terms of how that gerrymandering was being done across all the counties in the state. So just a couple of again, this is now from me personally, not from the association. I am very much endorse the Vote is Not Politician proposal and the effect of it that that although I had my doubts at times, the commissioners, the state apportionment commissioners came through with flying colors, I thought, and based on the principle that either party should be able to win a majority of the legislature. That is, the apportionment should not lock in one party as the majority, regardless of how people vote. That said, when we go down to the county level, most of the counties, as was mentioned, they have one party boards in large part because they're one party counties, and and so you take a county, let's say, some county up north that has 16 townships and every one of them is Republican, you're going to have a Republican board. I mean, there's not much way around that. And even if the county is, I don't know, 40% of the minority party, there's something called the balloon effect. A professor should be familiar with that, where the higher the proportion of the majority party, a majority party that has 60% of the vote might get 80% of the seats. That's just because the minority party is not necessarily going to be distributed, equally across all the different districts, and especially given that this bill reduces the number of districts allowed in a lot of counties. I'm a little puzzled as to the reason for that. Now, the statute that we're talking about was written in a great hurry. It was written carelessly. We've all suffered from the ambiguities and difficulties with this statute, and it has been interpreted in wildly different ways by different courts over the years. And the issue of continuity and compactness has been litigated in Ingham County, where I was from. The initial redistricting in 1968 was rejected because it did not have continuity. contiguity. It was the Lansing Township was in 6 different pieces, 6 separate geographic pieces, and that was District Number 1. And the Court of Appeals rejected that, but allowed that plan to be used for the 1968 elections. Subsequent courts basically demanded that districts be absolutely equal in population and that no other criteria was important. Which meant that civil boundaries, compactness, and so forth, that went completely out the window. It was the Court of Appeals in an Oakland County case said districts are to represent people, not political jurisdictions. Well, the Supreme Court put an end to that in 1882, when at the same time that they changed the law on and implemented the APOL standards for the legislature. They did a similar thing with the county boards, saying that you should have a much wider range of population, too wide in my opinion, to basically to require that city and township boundaries be followed. So where we've been late in recent years, one of the things about the commission being allowed to choose the number of commissioners is basically the idea that, especially if you're going to have such strict limits on breaking up jurisdictions, that you can choose a number that fits with the geography of the county. In Washtenaw County, we have the city of Ann Arbor, which is almost precisely 1/3 of the population of the county. And the longtime tradition in Washtenaw County in both parties is that you don't want to have districts that combine Ann Arbor territory with outside of Ann Arbor territory, so that Ann Arbor gets its districts and the rest of the county gets its districts. So in order to do that, you have to have a number of districts divisible by 3. And so, I think the implication is the fact that we have 9 commissioners and all 9 of them are Democrats at the moment, that there's something nefarious that happened, and I think that is not the case. The original 9-district plan, which was adopted following the 2010 census, received the unanimous support of all the members of the Apportionment Commission, including the Republican member. And the current plan is only very slightly changed from the plan that was adopted in 2010. What has happened is that over the last 15, 20, 30 years, the Republican Party in Washtenaw County has withered, and it no longer has enough support to win even 1 district out of the 9. If we had more districts, that might be different. But again, if we're going to limit the number of districts we can have, that also limits the amount of variety you can have, the amount of representation of different groups on the commission. So, fundamentally, my feeling is that this is important stuff. County government in Michigan is not structured for efficiency. It is really, and it's really to a very large extent up to the county board to manage the process as best they can, the budget and so forth. They have different amounts of authority over different departments depending on what statute they were set up under. And in my experience, both here and elsewhere, the county officials, the prosecutor, the treasurer, the clerk, are very often, what they're looking at is not partisan advantage so much as the workings of the county itself and the interests of the different groups. So I can definitely sign on with the idea that there could some changes needed in this statute, but I think that rushing this piece of legislation through is a mistake. So, and that's and as I said, the Association of County Clerks, we haven't not had time to discuss it in very much detail, but every clerk who has examined it on our committee has been opposed. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kestenbaum. Just a couple of things. I think that the Oakland County issue is addressed on page 3 in section 3 of the bill, if you want to take a look there. And also just we hear your concerns, and hopefully we can work through some of these with you. Do we have any questions for Clerk Kestenbaum? No, seeing no questions. Thank you for your testimony.
You're welcome. Thank you for listening.
Absolutely. Now I'm just going to read in some cards. We have Bill Zagman from GCSI representing the Michigan Association of County Clerks in opposition to the bill. We also have Joseph Bridgman from Livingston County Clerks in opposition. Also Elizabeth Hundley, also from Livingston County. Oh, so we have a few from Livingston County Clerks. So we have Elizabeth Hundley, Christy, and Christy Cox. And then we have Scott Urbanowski on behalf of himself. And then we have Sherry Ritchie from Pime in opposition, and Madeline Fata from the Michigan Association of Counties in opposition. We have Robert George from Michigan Labor's District Council in support of the bill. Aaron Squio from UFCW 876, Ryan Siebolt from Michigan AFL-CIO, Beth Kelly Bird from SEIU Michigan, and Aaron Shore on behalf of the Michigan Department of State in support of the bill. Representative Hope makes a motion to report House Bill 6171 with recommendation. Ms. Clerk, please call the vote.
Chair Cerniglu?
Yes.
Representatives Wagella?
Yes.
Pope?
Yes.
Colzar?
Yes.
Burns?
Yes.
Churches?
Yes.
Smith?
No.
DeBoyer?
No.
Madam Chair, you have 6 yeas, 2 nays, 0 pass. House Bill 6171 is reported with recommendation.
Thank you, Ms. Clerk. There being no further business before the committee will stand adjourned.